Sometimes we all need a bit of fresh energy, a burst of something new, an experiment to try out. I think making things often feels most joyous when we're not creating for any reason or aim in mind than to just enjoy the process and the feeling of making something from nothing, just being in that moment. I found myself needing a little boost of creative energy this week and wanted to take you along with me in the studio to share how I do this in case you need that too. These are two of my favourite abstract warm-up exercises that I use to get a fresh burst of inspiration, find new ideas, and just have fun with painting in a no-pressure way. They're also great exercises to ease into abstraction if you're curious about abstract painting and are not sure where to start. So often I find my new ideas or energy from bringing two or more things I love together. The collision of these interests, more often than not, create unexpected results, and better yet, give me more time immersed in the things that I love. Today I'm bringing together music and my albeit very basic textile pattern making and patchwork making skills that have blended with my painting practice to form something new in my paintings. As I share my own examples, try to think about ways you could bring two of your favourite interests together to re-inspire and energise your work. Let me know in the comments below what you might start bringing together for a fresh dose of inspiration. If you're new here, an extra welcome. My name is Orla and I'm an artist and illustrator. Outside of art, my other love is for nature, for landscape and being outside. And this inspires so much of what I create, including one of the projects I'm sharing with you in this video. Both of these exercises can take under an hour, so they're a great thing to try out when you're short on time. Of course, they can also take way longer if you want to really get in the zone with them. One of my favourite things to do to fall back in love with the creative process is to paint to music. Sometimes I paint to one specific song on replay, and other times it's to a whole album. Today I decided to work from my top played playlist. This, incidentally, is the music I've played the most whilst painting over the last year. Somehow I can only listen to certain genres and artists when I paint, so it tends to be the same few on repeat over and over, as you can see here. The general process, if you want to try this out for yourself, is to lay all of your favourite materials around you so they're close to hand. Select the music you want to paint to, and decide before you start painting how long you'd like to paint for. If you want to get really in the zone and have loads of time, then I think playing the one track on repeat is great for this. You can put it on replay so you don't need to keep on starting the track every time. Personally, I opted for a speedrun version because I wanted to paint really fast with no room for thinking, just responding. In this session, I wasn't looking to refine the pieces or make finished work per se, just to really enjoy the process. So if you want to try the speedrun version, make your playlist, hit play, and the length of the song is how long you paint that piece for. When the music changes, like musical chairs, you move on to the next surface and start responding to that track. I decided to do 2 rounds, laying the first layer on each page to match each track, on first listen. Then I repeated the playlist again to have one more go, so I could work into each painting a little more. Spacing out the tracks like this let that first layer dry a little bit, which was actually really useful. There are really no rules with this. The only thing I would say is to be mindful of using paints or really soaking the page. It's a pretty instant process, and you can get slowed down if the page is way too saturated to layer anything on top of. In this case, sometimes I do a little bit and come back to it later on. or I move on to another piece and another track while that dries a little bit. The main things I focus on when I'm painting to sounds and music is on colour, on texture, and on rhythm. These are the elements I find easiest to translate visually, though everyone will be different. For instance, I can't see shapes when I listen to music, but I can to colours and textures. I think everyone will have different associations, probably reflected in the different elements of painting we are all individually and naturally drawn to as well. Simple guides are things like when there's a really strong beat, I might make a mark in time with that beat. For texture, I'll think about the quality of sounds, for instance if they're jagged or smooth. How can I paint a mark which is jagged or smooth? The colours are usually a response to the emotion of the music, how the music makes me feel, or which colours come to my mind's eye as I'm listening. If you'd like to explore more texture in your painting, I've got a free tutorial you can follow on my Patreon page. That focuses on texture and mark making, and I'll link that video down below. If you're interested in learning more about painting to sound specifically, I've created a tutorial for my Patreon members to explore translating sound into marks and textures. I'd like to take this opportunity to say a really big thank you to my members over on Patreon, whose support helps make these videos I share here on YouTube possible. Patreon is the space where I share monthly video and written tutorials on my page, The Outdoor Sketchbook Collective. Alongside the monthly tutorials, we have a community chat and a monthly Zoom meetup for Studio Play tier members. If you're interested in abstract mixed media painting processes, connecting to nature through art, or you just enjoy my videos here on YouTube, I'll leave a link to my Patreon in the video description so you can check it out. I've also popped the tracks and the links to the musicians I painted to in the video description, in case you're curious how these paintings sound, or you're looking for some more calm music to listen to. This is also a really beautiful process to do when responding to sounds from nature and landscape. Sometimes I take field recordings when I'm outside on walks to draw from later on in the studio. And other times, I try this process in my sketchbook whilst I'm outside. I'm planning to do a separate video on painting to sounds of the landscape in the future, hopefully actually filmed and recorded outdoors, so watch out for that later on. This isn't an exercise exactly, but one of my favourite things to do when I need some more energy is to grab a cup of tea and write out a dream list of things that I would love to do in the future. Something about getting it out and just ideating really gets me excited and tuned back into the idea of possibility. I'll pop a photo of my dream list over on Instagram if you'd like to use it for ideas for your own experiments too, and you'll find me over there at Orla Stevens. Do you ever have loads of old paintings on paper lying around that you know you'll never progress or do anything with? This is a pretty cathartic process that you can use those very pieces so you can cut up your old work and practice not being precious with it. I've got these paintings here, which are all square pieces on handmade paper. I like elements of them, but they never got resolved, and I don't think I ever will, and I didn't have a plan for them until now. I adapted this exercise from my uni days when I studied surface design. If you've ever made a pattern tile for repeat patterns, you'll recognise this process. We aren't doing anything as technical as making a pattern today, but instead taking ideas from that textile process to create essentially a patchwork painting. For this, you'll need old paintings, specifically 4 or more of the same size, that you definitely don't want to keep. Please don't use your favourite work for this. The shape doesn't really matter, as long as they are all the same size. We'll also need something to cut the paper with. A ruler, a pen, tape, quite a lot of it, and if you'd like to paint on top at all during this process, some extra art-making materials for that. I've got 5 paintings here, and I'll break down the process with one of them to make a mini patchwork so that I can show you the process. And then later on, I'll show you how I combine all of the 4 remaining paintings to create one large piece. So let's start out with the basic process now. We're going to start out by flipping the painting over so it's face down. On the back, mark out the halfway point of each side, and use a ruler and a pen to match these points up so that we have a cross in the centre of our page. I find this easiest to work with a craft knife and a ruler, but scissors also work fine for this. We're going to pick one of those lines and cut along it. Next, we're going to swap those 2 halves over, and we're going to tape along this new centre line in the middle. We're going to cut along that second line. Exactly the same as before, we're going to swap those sides over left and right, and retape down along the middle for that new centre fold line. Let's flip the paper right way up so that we can see our painting, and our new painting at that. You'll see we've now got an, albeit slightly wonky, grid. We're basically going to use that really simple process for all of the 4 other paintings. But instead of swapping sides between the one piece like we have just done, we can intermingle halves from all of the 4 paintings together. I followed this process of cutting the paintings into halves at a time, exactly like the tile making process I just demonstrated. However, in hindsight, you could definitely just quarter all your paintings up and play with how you combine them together, taping them together at the back. What I find so fun about this really simple process is creating new colour combinations, new compositions, and proportions of colour. It's really just focusing on the design or composition part of the process to find balance between all the pieces and how you combine them and lay them out, simply by rotating and pairing over and over. I found it easiest to tape 4 sections together at a time to make the paintings back to their original size. Once I had 4 patchworked paintings, I then began arranging those 4 final pieces all together. And as I'm watching this back in the editing stage of this video, I can see that it would be so much fun to cut the squares down half again and rearrange with even smaller pieces to make even more contrast. This patchwork painting reminds me of topography, looking down from the land from a bird's eye view or a map. I've actually been looking for ways to do a whole project on maps and topography, but I haven't quite found a way into it yet. And now that I see this piece, I'm thinking that maybe this can be the route for that project. I'd like to say a really big thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope these exercises have given you some ideas to try out and experiment with. And if you do create something from them, I always love seeing the work that's made from these videos, so you can tag me over on Instagram at OilaStevens so I can see it. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you outside.